Merry Christmas, family. It's Christmas morning here in Germany, and woke up with an inspiration to share a message that awakening is not the end of suffering. Awakening is not the end of suffering. Um, this is a very common spiritual myth, a spiritual fantasy. Um, some people get around it through creating this idea that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Some people say, well, yeah, once you wake up, there will still be pain, but it's the end of suffering because suffering is everything that we conceptually overlay atop the pain, thereby dramatically increasing the pain and creating this big, dramatic, painful story around it and projecting into the past and future and often creating a lot of suffering around things that never even come to pass, creating a lot of fear and worry. And I do like this framework. I think there's some truth in it. That yeah, I think there will be a tendency for awakening to significantly reduce certain forms of suffering. And yet at the same time, I think there are many very unrealistic kind of spiritual fantasies and spiritual myths perpetuated out there and almost like spiritual marketing campaigns, you know. It's we live in the wild west of the spiritual marketplace, and it's very easy for many spiritual organizations or spiritual teachings to paint this picture of a glorious path beyond suffering, a path to heaven on earth, and it's easy for teachers to present themselves as bulletproof, enlightened supermen who've transcended human suffering or have, for the most part, transcended it, and create this kind of carrot on a stick that can make you feel like, oh well, I'm still suffering, so therefore I must not be awake, and I've got a lot further to go, and maybe someday I'll move beyond this. And yeah, I'm just here to tell you today that that's not the case. In my experience, that's not the case. And yeah, this used to trouble me more as well, this question. But what became really clarifying for me on my path was teachers and teachings, especially people like Peter Brown or John Aston, Dina Evans, Joan Tollefson, Robert Salzman, who for one, were honest about the fact that our wounded human personalities are still there after awakening, as well as um, some of these people really strongly emphasizing that this is it right now. Awakening is now. The this field of present experiencing, this field of present experiencing, which is the only thing we ever make contact with, this immediacy. Have you ever stepped outside of present experience? Has anything ever shown up outside of present experience when you have ideas of the past or future? Where do they show up? They show up in present experience. So awakening really just consists of noticing that, for one, noticing that, okay, present experience is all that we ever have. Present experience shines forth as a boundless wholeness. We are not in any way separate from this shining forth of present experience. And that doesn't mean we can't still feel a sense of physical boundariedness. That's part of what shows up in this shining forth of present experience. The shining forth of this wholeness is this sense of boundariedness and embodiedness. So that's all there. But especially if you close your eyes, it can be an easier access point to begin to feel how there's just this continuum of what could be called energy, texture, sensory data. There's a continuum of aliveness that has no clear edges and no clear demarcations in a profound sense. So you discover that now is all we come in contact with. You discover that now is this boundless wholeness. You discover that you can't actually say what now is. Even words like boundless wholeness, they can point directly, but they can't say what this is. You discover that nobody actually knows what this is in any definite sense, even though in one sense we know it most intimately because we are it and we are profoundly intimate with it. We swim in it, we dance through it, we know how to navigate this wholeness, this immediacy. In that sense, we know it, and yet we could never, in a million years, say what it is. We could write a billion treatises about this one moment, and we wouldn't be able to capture what this moment is because there's this quality of literally bottomless richness all around. There's a literal infinity of detail, a non-finite degree of detail, and you could say unpatterned patterning, because if you look closely, it's all continuously morphing, continuously shifting, continuously shape-shifting and slip-sliding through itself. So if you look closely at that profound degree of pixelation, which is easily noticeable if you look at the sky, or if you close your eyes, you look at the light dancing behind the eyelids, you can see this unimaginable degree of pixelation, this infinitely detailed artistry that is continuously morphing, shifting. And you can see clearly that you have no idea what that is. You couldn't say what that is. And then when you look closely at anything in experience, anything in any of the sense fields, you discover this same quality of buzzingness, this bottomless, ever morphing buzzingness pervades all of the sense fields. And so a very powerful practice, similar to what Peter Brown called his yoga of radiant presence, is just to stay with this buzzingness. Find any way to snap yourself out of normalcy, out of your normal consensus frame, and just taste and stay with and abide with the bottomless artistry, the ever-shifting buzzingness of anything in any of the sense fields. Just look closely and admit that you don't know what anything is. I don't know what this is. We call this a candle, and yet can you see that it's also an ever-morphing experience, and that if I look closely at it, it's never the same from one moment to the next. It also has this quality of subtle pixelation, subtle buzzingness, subtle shape-shiftingness. Everything does, and it can't be pulled out. It can't truly be disentangled from this whole happening, the happening of the whole universe, the whole field, the whole this here nowness, the whole this here nowness. So to really say what anything is, you would have to say what the whole thing is. And no one can do that. It's a living, dancing mystery. It's a living, dancing mystery. So awakening is basically just noticing that you don't know jack shit, deeply internalizing that you can't know in any definite sense. This is what the Buddhists mean by emptiness. Empty of definable, pin downable qualities. Empty of anything that can actually be concretized, solidified, structuralized as, oh yes, I've got my hands on this. I know exactly what this is. Emptiness is a quality inherent in experience that causes experience to evade categorization. It will always slip through your fingers like sand. And as they say, emptiness too is empty. So you also can't find or pin down emptiness in that sense. But emptiness is a pointer to this unpin downable quality. So in awakening, you just notice that now is all that you ever come in contact with. You don't know what now is. Now is shining, dancing forth as this seamless happening. In a profound sense, now is doing itself. This is great news. All you ever have to deal with is now, and now is doing itself in a profound sense. If you try to do nothing at all, you'll notice that experience continues to function. Experience continues to show up. Everything continues to present and to continuously morph and dance and shift into the next thing without you doing anything, And you're totally free to participate in this. There's this participatory quality where we can seem to have a degree of agency to kind of make apparent choices and shape our lives in whatever this mystery is. So that's an experience you can have. But, if you look really closely at the now moment as this kind of instantaneous happening that just shows up as a fullness, instantaneously, effortlessly, automatically, here and now, before we could say anything about it, you can kind of see that our stories of agency and control are, in a profound sense, applied after the fact. They are post hoc rationalizations of what is happening, whereas the actual event itself is just bang, flash, boom. It's just now, it's a done deal. All right, so just to wrap this up, those are some of the types of things that you notice through awakening, and you notice that it's just a noticing of what experience has always been. It's just a noticing that experience has always been this mystery that in a profound sense is unconditionally free because it can't be pinned down into any condition. It's this all-embracing wholeness. Everything is fully embraced in the light of just this present flash of appearance, and that fully includes anything that looks or feels like pain and suffering. That fully includes all the pain and suffering that has ever taken place for you, that will take place. There's no rule that says that pain and suffering can't keep showing up after you deeply notice what this is. It totally can. And yes, it's reframed in a profound sense. You notice that you don't really know what it is, and there's probably much less of a tendency to tell a big dramatic story about it. It's just kind of it becomes more and more like another texture that's just moving through. It's like, okay, this is just what's happening right now. This too shall pass. And maybe you're more curious about it. You're more likely to look at the naked, buzzing aliveness of it and say, what actually is this? What actually is this? And yet, yeah, it can still be there, totally, totally. And I don't think we'd want it to completely go away. This suffering in the human experience keeps us grounded, keeps us humble, cracks our heart open, makes us more compassionate, more profound. It deepens us, it initiates us in many profound senses. There's a laundry list of ways in which pain and suffering are great teachers, great humblers. So, yeah, pain and suffering have been really demonized in spirituality, and a lot of spiritual teachings act like spirituality is going to take you beyond suffering. And yeah, I'm just sharing what feels like the honest truth to me, which is that that's not the case. As long as you're in a human body, there's going to be different types of pain. Just yesterday, I experienced a fair bit of anger coming up, and that felt quite uncomfortable. And I was able to just be with those textures and let those textures move through to a profound degree, and they cycled through pretty quickly. You also tend to find this, that emotions cycle through much faster when you don't resist them, you don't really label them, you don't concretize them with a big dramatic story, you just kind of let them cycle through. But it was still, really uncomfortable, and you could say painful, or a form of suffering. It just was what it was. You can't say what it was. But the point is just that anything can happen. Anything can happen. This now is awakeness. Your experience is awakeness already. All the spiritual teachings, they've never pointed at anything other than your present experience exactly as it is. Your present experience as it is the mother lode. So whatever it's showing up as, that is it. Whatever it looks like, that is it. That is full enlightenment. There's no full enlightenment apart from what your experience is right here and now. Right here and now. There's really not, because there is nothing else. There is nothing else that we ever come in contact with. So what else could any word be pointing at other than this immediate flash of unknowable dancingness that is dancing itself as whatever it happens to look like? Yeah. And if unconditional freedom required a condition of zero suffering or zero selfing in order to be unconditional freedom, it would not be unconditionally free. Its unconditional freedom resides in the fact that it has always been unconditionally free, and it always will be unconditionally free. It's always been fully free to be exactly as it is in every moment, and to fully allow every single texture of experience, whatever it looks like. That's it. It's all fully included as pure poetry. Our sacramental human journeys are fully included in this mysterious flash of immediacy, this primordial flow. So let it flow, trust the flow, whatever it looks like, pain, suffering. That's it. That's it right there. No need to, no need to further amplify the pain by telling a big dramatic story about it and saying, oh, this makes me bad and unspiritual and insufficiently enlightened because I'm experiencing this, and oh, I'm going to keep pining about this, making it this big concretization of past guilt about the past and worry about the future. That's how we massively compound our suffering, for sure. And so relinquishing all solidified stories is very helpful and does bring about far more lightness. And yet, this can look like anything. It can show up as anything: intense pain, suffering, negative emotions. There are no negative emotions. There are no negative emotions, and yet, I just use that phrase to point at how we usually understand emotions. Em- there is no truly negative or positive experience. There's just experience, looking however it looks, and you don't know what it is. You don't know what it is, and you can't draw lines around any of it and separate it out from the rest of experience. There's just what's happening. It just is as it just is as it is. So just let it be. Let it be, let it flow. Thank you for listening. Much love, much peace. Amen. Aho. Namaste. Merry Christmas. Have a beautiful day, ladies and gentlemen. Peace and love.